Welcome back to Only Talk Sports. We talk sports every single day, or at least we try to. I'm Roach Jeffrey. Subscribe to the channel if you like sports content. Hit that notification bell so you never miss another video. St. John's has hired Hall of Fame coach Rick Pitino away from Iona, and I'm going to go over what I think about St. John's decision to hire Rick Pitino and whether I think St. John's will be a better program now in the future as long as Rick Pitino is still coaching college basketball. Now, you look overall at this decision for St. John's, and most people would probably think this is a slam dunk hire for the St. John's Red Storm to hire Rick Pitino, and I don't see how anybody could look at it any differently. Rick Pitino has succeeded wherever he's been. He's a fantastic head coach, and I know a lot of people talk about the stuff that's happened off the court. Yes, there's a lot of stuff that's happened. He's had recruiting violations. He's gotten a lot of his wins taken away as a head coach because overall his record is 711 and 290, which is really good, but he has won a lot more games than that. He has over 900 wins. I think he's actually maybe near 1,000 overall, but Rick Pitino has a lot more wins than the wins that he's been given credit for because of all the stuff that has happened. But if he does not have any recruiting violations at St. John's or anything bad happens off the court, then St. John's should have a lot of success because you look at everywhere he's been. Hawaii, he was there 1 year and they went 2-4. That was a short stint there. And then he became the head coach of Boston University. He took him to one NIT and one NCAA tournament. Then they went 91-51, so a lot better there. And then he was at Providence for 2 years in the Big East back in the 80s. He took him to one NIT and one NCAA tournament in the Final Four, and he went 42-23 in only 2 years of being their head coach. And then he became the head coach of the Kentucky Wildcats, and this is where Rick Pitino started to become well known. He was there for 8 years. He was 219-50 as their head coach, and in the 8 years he was there, Kentucky could not make the tournament the first 2 years that he was there because of the fact that Kentucky wasn't eligible for the NCAA tournament. But Rick Pitino took Kentucky to 6 NCAA tournaments, and he won a national championship as the Kentucky Wildcats head coach. But then he moved on to Louisville, and he coached there for 17 years, and his record is 293-140, and again, some of the wins are taken away, but he won a national championship in 2013. That was a really good team that he had, and even though that championship win no longer counts because of the recruiting violations and all the stuff that happened at Louisville, which is why Rick Pitino got fired, but he still won that national championship, and he took Louisville to 13 NCAA tournaments and 2 NITs, and Rick Pitino had so much success throughout his career at Louisville and Kentucky as well, but then he got fired at Louisville, and a lot of people lost a lot of respect for Rick Pitino. Again, all that stuff that happened off the floor, that's definitely tough to deal with. That definitely scars a person's image. But still, Rick Pitino, as a head coach, on paper, is one of the best head coaches in the business. He went over to coach the Greece national team for a couple seasons, but then he came back to the States, and he coached the Iona Gales for 3 years, and he took him to 2 NCAA tournaments, 1 NIT, and he had a 64-22 record. So he had a lot of success at Iona, Boston University, Providence, Louisville, and Kentucky, wherever he's been. And now St. John's is going to hire the 70-year-old coach for probably his last stop as a coach in college basketball before he retires. St. John's has given him a 6-year contract, and this is a fantastic move for St. John's as long as nothing bad happens for Rick Pitino at this stop, as long as he doesn't get in any trouble, because he is a fantastic head coach, has around 1,000 wins under his belt, even though a lot of them don't count. He's won 2 national championships, and St. John's, and even though St. John's has not been a great program in the last 20 years, they've been a middling Big East program. They've been up and down, have not had tons of success. They're not Georgetown. St. John's, this past season with Mike Anderson as head coach, went 18-15. That's on the cusp of making the NCAA tournament. They barely missed the NIT. St. John's is not in bad shape like Georgetown, where they went 8-23 this past season, and Ed Cooley's being tasked to turn that around. And even though the Big East has a lot of teams that are really good right now, all you have to do is look at Rick Pitino and the success that he's had wherever he's been. He should be able to come into St. John's, bring in some transfers, maybe start to up the recruiting a little bit, and probably in a year or two, Rick Pitino's going to have St. John's back in the NCAA tournament. He's probably going to have him as one of the better teams in the Big East, and he could have finally St. John's to be able to go far in the Big East tournament because they haven't been to the semifinals since 2002. St. John's has really struggled as a program. Chris Mullins couldn't bring him back. Mike Anderson couldn't bring him back to glory. St. John's has had a lot of head coaches that have definitely led St. John's to mediocre records, but at least St. John's has never really been at the bottom of the Big East like Georgetown. I think a lot of people thought Rick Pitino maybe would take the Georgetown head coaching job, and I think possibly Rick Pitino could have turned that around as well, but it would have taken a lot more time, even though you do have the transfer portal, which is a quick fix. So I think Rick Pitino could have fixed Georgetown possibly, but it would have taken a lot longer, and Rick Pitino doesn't have a lot of time. He could coach into his late 70s like Jim Boeheim, but he is 70 years old. St. John's is giving him a 6-year contract, so he needs a job that he can kind of turn around around really quickly. And again, even though St. John's has not been a great program for a long time, you look at Rick Pitino, his bloodline is the Big East. He is in New York right now coaching Iona, and now that he's moving on to St. John's, he's staying in New York. This is the lifeblood of where Rick Pitino is as a head coach. He's a Big East man. He's had a lot of success in this conference, and he's definitely a Northeast kind of guy, and I think that St. John's is the perfect spot for him. He could have had success at Georgetown, but it's a little bit different in Washington, D.C. than it is in New York, where he's at right now with Iona. He doesn't have to travel as far, and I think that St. John's is a program that's in much better shape, even though I do think Ed Cooley could potentially turn around Georgetown. It will take some time. Hopefully Ed Cooley will be able to do that, but this is a much better job for Rick Pitino to take at St. John's, even though a lot of people think Rick Pitino should have stayed at Iona because it was a smaller job. He didn't have all the pressure, and he could have stayed there until he decided to retire. No pressure of getting fired. He's not in the national spotlight, so all the stuff that happened in his past, no one's going to really bring up as much. But now that he's at St. John's, a lot of the stuff could reappear. That could be a negative thing there, and he's also going to have a lot more pressure being in the Big East at a school that really wants to win, and that's why they're bringing in Rick Pitino, is for St. John's to win a lot more. That program really wants to win. They've had a lot of success in the past with Luke Carson-Seneska as the head coach of St. John's. His name's even on the court, and I think St. John's, they're a program that has a lot of history as well, just like Georgetown, but St. John's is in much better shape as of right now than Georgetown to succeed. So I think overall for Rick Pitino, moving from Iona to St. John's, it's still in New York. You're not having to go that far. I think that's a great move geographically. I think it's a great move logically as well, being in the Big East, because of the fact he has had so much success in the Big East at Louisville and at Providence for Rick Pitino in the past. So I think for Rick Pitino all around, this is a fantastic decision to go to St. John's, except for the fact he could have stayed at a smaller school in Iona and avoided all the pressure of a bigger job. That's the only drawback. But as long as Rick Pitino does what he did at his other stops in college basketball and is able to bring up St. John's and have a lot of success like he did at all of his other stops, I think this is a fantastic move for Rick Pitino to go to St. John's. And for St. John's, as long as the stuff doesn't appear in the past, all the baggage that happened in the past at Louisville and some of the other stops that Rick Pitino was at where things went wrong, and a lot of the stuff that happened where he ended up getting fired at Louisville, and a lot of people are concerned about that, but as long as none of that stuff happens for St. John's, then this is a fantastic hire for St. John's to hire Rick Pitino, and there's a really good chance that St. John's in the next few years could end up being a really good basketball team, and hopefully Rick Pitino can build up St. John's and have a lot of success, and then the next Red Storm head coach will be able to have a lot of success as well. And for the Iona Gales, hopefully they can still have some success without Rick Pitino, and they could now that they've just hired former Fairleigh Dickinson head coach Tobin Anderson, who led his 16-seed team to beat the number 1 seed Purdue in the NCAA tournament this year. So it looks like maybe the Iona Gales could continue to win. So hopefully everything works out there as well. But overall, I think this is a great decision for Rick Pitino to go to St. John's, except for the fact of the added pressure of a bigger school. And I think for St. John's, as long as the stuff that doesn't happen in the past comes back up, I think this is a really great hire for St. John's to hire a Hall of Famer in Rick Pitino to be able to build up your basketball program. And hopefully for St. John's, hiring Rick Pitino really works out. Subscribe to the channel if you like sports content. Like this video down below. Comment down below what you think about St. John's hiring Rick Pitino, or whether you think Rick Pitino should have stayed at Iona, or you think he made the right decision to go to St. John's, and whether you think Rick Pitino can turn around St. John's or not. Follow me on Twitter as well, and I will see you next time.